right, September 3rd, 2018. We're in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm with Eugene Sostarich.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yes.
right? What's your middle name?
Eugene is my middle name, but my first name is Edwin.
Okay.
But I rather use Eugene.
Is there a reason why you prefer Eugene?
It's just because I like Eugene better.
Okay.
You know.
Interesting. And I've heard that people call you Yuch.
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 Mm-hmm.
It's a very throaty, nasally.
I don't even know what it means, and I don't know who gave me that name, but that's my nickname.
Do you like it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And some people still in the family, most of them, or old friends, you know, that if they're still around, they call me Yuch most of the time.
Okay. And well, let's kind of start from the beginning. Where were you born and when?
I was born in Kansas City, Kansas, on Strawberry Hill, and not in a hospital, but at home. They had a, what do they call them, a midwife. And I was born on November the 27th, 1934, in Kansas City, Kansas. That's it. You know.
This is still kind of Depression era.
Yeah.
The United States hasn't really come out of that Great Depression yet. It would be, you were 7 whenever Pearl Harbor was attacked. Do you have memories of that time?
Pearl Harbor? Yeah. When the war started, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did that change your life as you knew it, even as a 7-year-old?
No, because it didn't change my life. It was just, I thought about it a lot, you know, but I wouldn't say it changed my life.
It wasn't like a direct impact.
Yeah, it wasn't, no.
Okay. What was it like in the Depression era in Strawberry Hill?
Well, see, during the Depression, that was before my time. Well, I was born in 34, and it was in 32 to probably 34, 35. I imagine it was. I'm not sure, though. But didn't have much. Like, we didn't have a Christmas tree for a long time, you know, till my dad got some money. And it was mostly, I guess, where they spent their money. My dad worked at Armour's Meat Packing Company, which a lot of the people on the hill, that's where they worked at, is Armour's. And most of the money went to house and home, you know, house and home and food, you know, so we didn't have very many extras, not at all. So
I've learned a little bit about your father, Lewis, right?
Yes.
Seems like he had a tough life.
Yeah, he did. He sure did.
Can you tell me about him?
Yeah, when he came over, now, from my understanding, he came over in about, close I could figure, about 1905 or something like that. And he went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where he had some relatives, and one of them owned a sawmill. So he went to work for this guy, and he worked there for like 5 years, made enough money so he could so he could go back to Croatia and pick up my oldest brother and sister and his wife, my mother. And when he got over there, the First World War broke out. So he was still a Croatian citizen. So he was captured in that by the Italians, and he spent the whole war, I guess, in a camp, prisoner of war camp, I guess. And so of course when he got out of that, of course he was broke. Everything was gone again, no money or anything. So in some way he come back to the States. I don't know if somebody here sent him money, you know, to get him over there again. Back to Baton Rouge, back to the sawmill and working. And his job was cutting down trees, more or less. And from what I understand, because he didn't talk about it much, other than telling us little bits of things like what he did, and like chopping down trees. That's what he did. So when he made enough money, he sent my mother and the two kids, he sent them money to come to the United States. He wouldn't go back. He wouldn't go back to get them like he did the first time, because he always said, you see what happened to me? I went over there the first time. I wasn't going to go back to get them, but I'd send them the money and they could come over by themselves. So on the way, after he got them, picked the kids up in New York, and my mother, they stopped at Kansas City, because they had a lot of friends that lived in Kansas City. So from what I hear then, after my mother seen all those friends there, she told my dad, I'm not going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm staying here. We're going to stay here. Now she said, if you want to go, you can go, but me and the kids are staying here. So my dad said, okay, we'll stay here. And he got a job at the meat packing company, and that's where we lived. Bought his house and everything.
So you said that he didn't talk much about that time in his life. Did your mother talk about it at all?
Not too much. And even my oldest sister and my oldest brother, they didn't want to talk about it too much, because it was hard, real hard times there, especially with losing the other three kids over there. It was just, my sister Dorothy, she couldn't hardly even talk about it. And she sure as heck didn't want to tell you all about it, you know what I mean? Because it brought back too many memories for her, bad ones. Because the kids that she left over there, that she grew up with, most of them got killed during the war. So it was hard for her to even talk about it.
So it seems like part of it is kind of that terrible history.
Yeah.
But also kind of the need to start new and build something fresh from those ashes.
Yeah.
How has the community in which your mother decided to join and your father joined her, how does that community hold those old traditions?
Oh yeah, well at the church that the Croatians built a church in that area. Then they had houses all around it, real close. Like we just lived a half a block from school. It wasn't. You didn't have to tromp through the snow to go 50 miles to go to school. You just got outside and walked up the street, and there you were. Everything was there. The church was there. All the nuns were there. It was a Catholic school. That was there. And they had that bowling alley was there. Had a gymnasium there upstairs from that bowling alley.
So whenever your mother came over, did she speak English?
No. She, even when, till the day she died, she didn't speak much English. A little bit, a little, but mostly Croatian.
And your father?
No, he spoke English.
Which generation do you think kind of stopped using the old language?
Oh, probably when I was in kindergarten, because when I went to kindergarten, I spoke more Croatian than I did English, But then I learned English real good in the schools, so because I stayed kindergarten plus 8 grades there in that same place, which is all is still there. Half of the hill is gone because they took the house where I lived at, and some of the surrounding area. There were all houses there, between like where the church is at now, right across the street was houses. But they took all that for the freeway and everything. And then my parents moved out further, like on 55th Street, I think they lived. They bought a house there, but because they didn't have anything else on the hill, you know, other than the people that had houses there already. So.
And did the church kind of hold that community together even
Yeah,
though they were further apart?
Yeah. Like all my kids went to school there. They all had the same kindergarten teacher, the nun. And the rest of them were nuns too, but that one was special to everybody. Because mostly she probably had all those people that are left, probably had their mothers and fathers in school, plus their kids in school. You know.
Did you work as a young person, as a teenager? Did you work?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When I went to high school, more or less, it was like my dad told me, now you're kind of on your own. If you want any extra money or anything, you're going to make it yourself. So I got a job in a filling station close to the high school. And as soon as school was out, I'd go to the filling station. It was a self-service station then. Well, all the stations were self-service, or not self-service. What do you call it?
Pump their gas.
Pardon me?
You would pump their gas.
Oh, yeah. I pumped their gas, washed the windshields, you know, and greased the cars, and how to learn how to do all that stuff, you know, working on cars.
Wow.
Yeah. That's where I learned to work on a car, to tell you the truth.
You were the youngest, right?
Yes.
What was it like being the youngest?
Oh, man. I did some crazy stuff when I was that young. And first, in my sophomore year in high school, I bought my first car.
What was it?
It was a 31 Chevy coupe with a rumble seat.
Whoa.
And oh man, that car. It was kind of beat up. So these buddies of mine, we took that. There was an abandoned school, public school, not too far from where, like, it was on the hill still, on Strawberry Hill. But it had a big playground around it, all asphalted. And we took that car up there, put it on that, in that parking lot, or that slab around the school, and we painted it with brushes. Painted it all black, and I painted most of the whole body myself. The other guys, it had spoke wheels on it. The other guys, they painted the reds. We painted red spokes, the spokes all red, and we painted white sidewalls on it. Then a girl that we knew that lived across the street from that school, that car had little side windows on both sides, and she made curtains for those little windows, and we put them on there. That was before my mother or dad even seen that car. My dad didn't know nothing about it, but my mom, I talked to her before I bought that car, and I asked her, would you sign the title for me? And she said, sure. But she says, what kind of car is it? She didn't know anything about cars. I said, it's pretty nice, Mom. It's pretty nice. So that's why we painted it all up before I took it home. So when I took it home, I had her come out of the house and look at it. So, oh, that's a cute little car. It says real nice. It's in good shape and everything, you know.
Wow.
That was my first vehicle. Oh, my God.
Whenever you talked with your mother, did you speak Croatian with her?
Mostly with Croatian to her, yeah.
Do you remember some of it?
Oh, yeah.
Can I hear it?
Oh, like good morning was dobro dan. Good night was lako noć. This is my ruka is your hand. Ear is uha. Eye is oči. Mouth is vust. But if I talk to somebody that knows a little Croatian, I could talk to them better. But we could converse back and forth. Not real good, but pretty good. And when somebody in Croatian asks me if I speak Croatian, I tell them, samo malo. That means just a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember a lot of the words still, but you try to go in sentences, I just don't. I couldn't do it hardly.
Could you tell me about your relationship with your father?
With my dad?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when we in the house that we had, when I slept next to him in bed, but the deal was we had 2 double beds and a fairly good sized bedroom, and we pushed them 2 beds together, and then my dad was on this end, then me, then my brother Ray, then my brother Tony, then my sister Immigrant, and then my mother. 7 of us in the bed, you know. But it was great, just great. But that's the only room we had, you know. So, because we had an upstairs, but my dad rented it out most of the time, just to save money, you know.
As the youngest, did you have certain privileges with your father in that way? Were you like favored?
No, the favorite was my brother Ray.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I was the youngest, I slept next to my dad. Okay. Yeah, I was probably the favorite then before I really started giving him trouble, you know. Oh.
Tell me about Ray.
Oh, man. When we were small, before we got into high school, both of us, I'll go back just a little bit. My oldest sister was 2 years older than my brother Tony. And my brother Ray was 2 years younger than Tony. Then I was 2 years younger than Ray. Because there was 2 years between all of us, you know. But, and now I don't know what the age span was between my oldest brother and my oldest sister. Quite a bit, you know, quite a bit of age spread. But like I was telling you about Ray, in grade school he was always picking on me, always picking on me. He didn't want me around, like we'd go outside to play and everything, you know. Play with our friends. Well, he'd tell me, go on back in the house, you know. He says, you can't play with us, can't hang around with us or nothing.
Sounds about right.
And we fought all the time, constantly fighting. But when we got in high school, it changed. When I was a freshman, he was still the same way, more or less. But when I get sophomore, from then on, we were best of buddies. Then we were real good friends.
What caused that change? Just age? Or?
Just age, I guess, you know. I guess he got tired of picking on me. I don't know for sure.
Did you get over on him any times?
Pardon me?
Whenever he was picking on you, did you ever get over on him?
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah.
One time, this is bad. My dad, we used to have an ice box in the basement. It just held ice. It was a wooden one, you know. So my dad bought their first refrigerator. And it wasn't very big, you know, but it was white porcelain, you know, front and all that, and the sides. So Ray was teasing me one day before my mom and dad got off work, you know. So he's really harassing me. And I started chasing him around the house. You could go from the front room through the bathroom. The bathroom had 2 doors, and then the kitchen, then the dining room, then the front room. So I was chasing him around all these rooms, you know, and I couldn't catch him. So that the last time we were going through the kitchen, he was in just a little bit in front of me. I almost had him. And there was a butter knife laying there by the sink. And when I ran by, I grabbed that butter knife and I threw it at him. And he ducked and it hit the refrigerator and knocked a chunk of that porcelain out of the front of that refrigerator. And when my dad got home and asked us who done that, and Ray was pointing, he did it. And I couldn't say anything. He says, yeah, I did it. How did you do it? I said, I threw that knife at him. And I got a good whipping then, I'm telling you. Because Ray was his favorite anyway when he was small, you know. Oh, man, I got in so much trouble for that. Oh, and my mom gave me a good talking to when she got home, too. When our brand new refrigerator, we didn't have it a week, I don't think, when I done that. Oh, man. But it was stuff like that. It was. But like I say, after we got in high school, nobody could pick on me or anything. Because if you did, you had to deal with Ray. And he was a mean dude when I got to fighting, you know. But.
Did you stay close to your brother throughout all of your life?
Oh, yeah. And my brother Tony.
And they all stayed in Kansas City?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. But Tony went in the service then, and he joined the Air Force. And he was in there for 20 years. I just see him off and on. But we got along good, all of us, you know.
So what did you do for a living?
Me?
Yeah.
I worked at Certainty. It's an insulation company. Mm-hmm. I worked there for 35 years. You had to get used to that insulation. Oh, man. But after a while, I got a real good job down there where I was a line operator, and I had like 20 guys working under me on a production line. So, and I was running the whole thing. So.
Did you ever have any desire to work in the meat packing?
Oh, no. Because that was a sweatshop, more or less. That was hard work. Because there was a meat packing company across the river from the church. And there were a Swift's company down there. It was a meat company. And the stockyards were down there. And they had what we called them was pig chutes. Like Armour's building was like here, and the stockyards were over here, quite a ways away. And they had these pig chutes, we called them, that run alongside the river on the other side, more or less, up on top of the bank. And like they drive the pigs through this, what we called the pig chutes, more or less, and they'd run them all the way to Armour's, you know, where they didn't have to take them by truck or anything. That's how they transported them all over. They had one guy they'd put a bunch of pigs in that thing from the stockyards. Then a guy, he'd have a, I'll never forget that, like a canvas strap, about 4 inches, 5 inches wide, and then it had a wooden handle, and it was about 5 or 6 foot long. And then he'd whip the pigs in the back to keep them moving, and they'd shove the other ones in front of them and keep them walking, you know, all the way to Armour's. Then they'd unload them and then slaughter them there.
So that probably wasn't the more pleasant smells from your...
Oh, no. Yeah, that's what the hill, you could always smell the stockyards. And our house was pretty close to the inner city viaduct. That was a bridge that went from Kansas City, Kansas to Kansas City, Missouri. I think it was 2.5 miles long, something like that. A lot of traffic on it, because that was the best way to get from Kansas City, Kansas to Kansas City, Missouri, was the inner city viaduct. And a lot of traffic on it. So at night you get the smell from the stockyards and the noise from the traffic, and there were trains running just right down the street from us, close to the river. They had railroad tracks down there. And there wasn't any passenger trains or anything. It was just box cars and coal cars and stuff that they shuttled back and forth to different parts of the city. But you had that noise too. So.
Did you ever hop any? Did you hop any of the
Oh yeah, we rode them all the time. Yeah, yeah. Oh, if my dad would have known that, he would have beat us. Oh, jeez. Well, I used to hop them all the time.
So one thing I haven't really been told about is when did you lose your father?
In I can't remember the year. He died when he was 82 years old. I think he was 82. Lost my mother first. She was 66, I think, when she passed away. But she had heart problems all her life, more or less. But that's what got her, heart failure.
How old were you?
Pardon me?
How old were you?
When she passed away, I was, let's see. Around about. I was about 21, 22. And then my dad passed away when I was about 26.
It's a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Did your siblings step into a role of the patriarch of the family at that moment?
More or less, Joe, my oldest brother, was. Yeah.
How did the community grieve? Like, what was the ritual?
Well, if they had, like, if a child died on the hill, on Strawberry Hill, and you belonged to St. John's Church, then they had the funerals at home, more or less, or the visitation and everything at the houses, with a small, with a small casket, and then the day of the funeral, they'd carry the casket up to the church, which was just, everybody's house was real close to the church, so it wasn't far to go. And and then at the funerals, they had their own, more or less, this one cemetery where all the Croatians are born or are interred or buried is it's mostly Croatians in that place now, 'cause it's still there. And they'd have visitation for an adult. There was a funeral home there, 2 funeral homes on Strawberry Hill too, and you'd go to whichever was your preference, to have your. But they'd have a mass for you on the day that you went to the cemetery. And usually there were a lot of people there, a lot of mourners. But it's still like that, I guess, on the hill.
What about whenever a child is born?
Well, they have showers for them and all that stuff, for the, what they call showers, for the parents, for the mother especially. They whenever a gal would get pregnant, they'd have showers for her when they got close to birth time. Give them necessities, like diapers and stuff for the baby. Everything was for the baby, And then when they'd have them showers, all the people would bake for them, That's a sad time for everybody, more or less, when somebody did pass away on the hill. Because you knew them all. You knew everybody on the hill.
Seems like a strong community, though.
Yeah. And like when my kids were small, like I say, they went to the same school, grade school, that I went to.
How many kids do you have?
I got 3.
3.
Yeah. Yeah, David, who just walked through. David and Cheryl's the oldest. Then David, and then Tim. Now, Cheryl still lives on the hill in a house close to the church. She's just about a block and a half away from the church, so she could walk to church most of the time. She's a school teacher. David is in the radiology management, and Tim was teaching school for a while, teaching high school for a while, but now he's working at Home Depot.
Working class roots.
Pardon me?
Working class roots.
Yeah.
So, did you encourage your children to learn to play music?
No, that was kind of funny, because my wife, their mother, she wasn't Croatian. But when we got married, after we got married, she knew some people on the hill that lived on the hill. That's how I met her. Then after we got married, and she joined the church, became a Catholic. She wasn't Catholic. She joined the Catholic Church before we got married. And I'm losing my train of thought here now.
How did your family receive that? Were you discouraged from marrying women who weren't Croatian or?
Well, they wanted to meet them first.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to bring her to dinner and everything, a couple times before they approved, more or less. And they wound up probably liking her better than they did me. I don't know, because she just mixed right in with everything. She's the one that my wife was the one that got those kids all playing tamburitzas in the tamburitza group, they called it. And when they started that tamburitza group, that's it, most of the kids in the community wanted to do the dances and play the instruments, So that was a big deal. Yeah, that's how I got to go to Europe the first time. Was the kids were going to go. They got invited to Yugoslavia. That was before they broke up everything, And we got to go over there as chaperones. They paid for like half our fare, and we paid the other half. That's the only way we could afford to do it, But we went over there with them. And I got to see a lot of relatives over there. And I got to see the place, the village my folks were born in. The house wasn't there. It was gone, because I think it got damaged during the war too. And but my relatives told me that they showed me what house it was, where my parents lived, and all that was left after it burnt down, or during the war, the foundation was still there. So some other people more or less bought the property and built a house on it. So when we were over there visiting, there was two women that lived in that house, a daughter and her mother, and they invited me. They found out that my parents used to live in that house, not the same house, but same foundation. So they invited me and one of my cousins and Tim were there in the village, and they invited us in the house, give us a tour of their house, which was just a small house, but it was nice that they let us in there, and they were real friendly, and
I bet it was a big moment, though.
And all the people in that village, I got to meet them all, and they told me, they said, now, if it wasn't for your mom and dad, we would all died over here during the war. Because I'll never forget that. My dad would send them a package every Saturday over there. He'd go collect some clothes and stuff, from different people, and he'd send it over to that village. And he'd even send stuff that was rationed during the war, like sugar and coffee. He'd send that over there too. he'd wrap the clothes around all that, and then those packages, you know, a little box about this big, you know, 2 by 2 by 2, you know. He'd have me or Ray, the one, help him carry that package up to the post office to mail them. And that was about once a week, every Saturday. But those people said, yeah, if it wasn't for your folks, we wouldn't be here now. And they had a little chapel there in that village, and they took me in that chapel, and the altar cloth, he said, your mom made that. And they still had it. They still got it there. But that was pretty neat, seeing all that and talking to those people that knew our family. And then they all asked, well, why didn't you bring your dad? Why didn't you bring your dad? And I told them what the deal was. He didn't want to go back over there for nothing because of what happened to him the first time he went back. You know, and that was a big block for him. He says, no, I'll send him money and stuff, but I'm not going over there.
That's so important, though, because he didn't abandon that history. He tried to support people. And,
He knew how bad it was, you know, of the experience he went through in the First World War. And then reading in the newspaper about the war going on over there, you know, that, whew, that's why he sent those packages over there.
Those are tough times, too, and so to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
Speaks a lot.
Yeah, like I say, my mom used to do a lot of cooking, you know, at home. Well, she cooked all our meals and everything, made her own bread and sweets and everything. He made wine, and then she made grape jelly and all that stuff. And she could have used some of that stuff here. We could have used it, coffee and sugar, sure. But he'd, once in a while, not at every package, but once in a while, he'd send them coffee and sugar, which was, it's like the people said, we wouldn't have made it. No way. No way. But that was real good to hear, that he cared, my mom and dad cared that much about those people.
Do you know much about his father, your grandfather and your grandmother? Do you know much about them?
They were stayed over there, and all that I just heard was you know, how my mom and dad told me about how it was over there before they left, and how hard it was on my mother's father, because she was an only child. On my dad's side of the family, there were, he had, I don't know, 5 brothers and 3 or 4 sisters, so he still had a lot of family over there.
That had to take a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And it's that's the American dream, right?
Yeah, no kidding. That was his dream, come over here. You know, because I guess he kept thinking, well, look at what the cousin that had the sawmill over here. Look at him now. He's got a lot of money and everything. Got his own business. Well, he says, I can make some money over there. Same way. But he stayed in the packing house business all his life, you know, till he retired. But and after us kids were grown, or you know, could fend for ourselves a little bit, my mother got a job too. She was a seamstress, and she'd make clothes for people. She made all our clothes when we were small, all of them. And a lot of people on the hill that bring stuff over to Mom to have Mom make a dress or something. And my sister Immigrant, the one that's 6 years older than me, was 6 years older than me, she could take my mother up on the avenue, on Minnesota Avenue, that's where all the stores were at, and she'd pick out some clothes she'd show Mom. She said, I want to dress like that. And my mom would just look at her, buy some material and make it. And she'd even, where she worked at, she'd take labels home, like the label in the back of your shirt and everything. I guess them people gave her any of the labels she wanted, and she'd sew them in. After she sewed him a dress or a jacket or anything, it had a label in it.
Why do you think
Like it was store. Well, it was like store bought then,
So the other kids wouldn't know?
Yeah, I guess.
It sounds like your mother was a very important person in
Oh,
the community.
yeah, she was. Oh man, she was great. When she'd make these things they call puhansa, and they're just some dough. I don't know how she made them, but roll them out with the rollers out with a rolling pin till it's just like a 1/16 of an inch thick, and then cut it in strips, and then kind of tie it in a knot, and then throw it in hot oil on the stove, and then just fry it for just a little bit till it got a little crisp, and then she'd have one of my dad's bushel baskets that it would use to pick grapes with, and she'd have it lined with some kind of material that she had. She'd line that basket, and she'd do a basket at a time. And if somebody was having a party, they all knew that my mom made the best puhansa, so they'd come down and order some from her, and she'd sell them. And nut bread, same way. She'd make that nut bread all the time, and she made the best. And then she passed that on to her daughter, my sister Dorothy. And my sister Dorothy's the oldest girl. She does that stuff too. She passed it on to her. So she makes Croatian food,
Well, what values do you think that generation had? Your parents, your siblings. What values do you wish that younger generations would keep?
Oh, if they'd just keep that tradition going, and I think they still do a lot of that stuff. Like the kids learn how to play instruments and stuff like that. I don't know for sure if they do it or not, but because I don't go to church down there. Well, I don't live around here anymore, but I go out in California is where I live. But I hope they're trying to save that for the kids, and like all three of my kids went through that, playing instruments. That's where they learn to play instruments. All three of them can play instruments, and my daughter, she teaches the old dances, Croatian dances, yeah, with circle dances and stuff like that. Yeah, she used to have classes for that. I don't think she does it anymore because she's getting up in age. She's a school teacher now, so.
Heather, what questions do you have?
Oh, I don't know. About, what do you mean? About what?
Well, I'd like to ask Heather if she has questions.
Oh, I didn't know you were there. You listening to all this? Yeah, have you got any questions?
I just love to hear you talk.
Oh,
Eugene, I feel so lucky.
don't get me wound up now, or I could tell you stories all day long.
Well, that's great.
When we were kids, oh man, we done some crazy things.
So, Uncle Eugene, can you tell me a little bit about Joe?
About Joe. Now, see, I didn't. He was gone for quite a while because he went out to California when he was probably in his 20s, and I never knew how he got out there. I really didn't. And that was when, because he went out there when I was pretty small still. But He told me how he got out there, and I don't know. He didn't tell anybody else, but he told me. He didn't tell my other brothers, no, or he didn't tell my sister, you know. But he told me. He said that he met this guy and his wife that were in a Cat's drugstore, which was up on Minnesota Avenue. And that's where all the stores and stuff were. He met this guy and a gal, and they were selling eyeglass cleaner. And like these little bottles at like 2 cents a bottle, something like that. I don't know. It was, you think of that now and you think, how can you make a living doing something like it? But they went from town to town doing it. Well, Joe got to talking to him. He told me, and he says, they seemed like real nice people, you know. So he says, where are you guys going after this? And they says, well, we're heading to California, but we're making stops on the way out there, all the way out there. So he asked him if he could go with him. And he says, I'll help you sell that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, he said, I'll help you sell that eyeglass cleaner. Because that's what he wound up doing. He was a salesman after he got out of the service and everything. You know, but he said that's how he got out there in California.
And how old were you when he left? Do you remember?
I was probably, it was right before the war, so it had to be like in 38 or 39, something like that. Yeah. Then he went into service out there. When he went out there, he couldn't find a job. Most of the Croatian people that were out there they was going to California for their dream too, I guess. All of them were, the only jobs they could find was setting pins in bowling alleys. And he says, I'm not going to do that. This is what he told me. He went to work for this, I don't know, he didn't tell me how he met this gal, this lady. Her name was, she's a movie star, Her name was Andrea Leeds. Did you ever hear anybody like that? The name of her. Good looking gal, because he sent us pictures of her and everything. And he was like her handyman and chauffeur. Yeah. And even my David's son, he looked her up for me on the internet. And he says, I'll tell you all the movies she played. And he went down the list. He said, yeah. He says, Joe worked for her. And he said, yeah, he did. That's when he changed his name from Sostarich to Sherry. And he told me, when he was telling me all this stuff about going out there and everything, he says, that's the sorriest thing I ever done. I should have never done that. He said, because my dad was furious when he found out he did that. So he asked Joe, he says, what, are you ashamed of your name? Of my name? Oh, he said, that's the worst mistake he ever made in his whole life. And now, if it was nowadays, I would have never changed my name now, because the name I got is that's an in thing now. Heck, you know, people always say Sostarich. They'll try to pronounce it and get it all butchered. Said, how do you pronounce it? And I'll tell them, okay, say ostrich and put an S in front of it. Sostarich. That's the way to do it. I tell everybody that. They say, that's clever, right? I says, yeah, that's. When I was in high school, I started doing that. Kids would tease me about my name. They'd get it all screwed up, you know. I'd say, okay, say Sostarich, put an S in front of it. Now try it. And they could do it. It's real easy.
Did you not go to high school with a lot of other Croatian students?
No, I went to public school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My dad couldn't afford to send me to a Catholic school because they had to pay tuition, you know, and stuff like that.
Would you describe those times, were Croatians ever discriminated against?
Oh, I imagine they all were, because it's everybody, you know, people discriminated against everybody, you know, like Italians and all, you know, they're all gangsters, and Irish all are drunks, they drink too much, and the Croatians were just bad, I guess, I don't know. But I never got in any big to-do about, being Croatian.
The way you and your family describe Strawberry Hill is like it has its own personality.
It does. It really does. And the funny thing now is, like I say, my daughter still lives there. She said, people are moving back to the hill. She said, if they put a house up for sale on the hill, it's gone that fast. Kids are, like with Croatian kids that live out away, they're moving back to the hill. So the tradition will probably be carried on for a long time, because all the Croats are still there. Even the little ones are starting, So I just hope that, like I was saying, that they keep up the tambourines and this stuff.
It must have been hard to leave.
Pardon me?
Was it hard for you to leave?
Oh, yeah, kind of hard, because when I first got married, then we had kids right away. So, but my kids went to school there, so we were always. And my wife, like I say, she wasn't Croatian when I married her. But the crazy thing was, after we were, when we first got married, we rented a house upstairs from the people that had a house next door to where I grew up in. Then the city comes through, or the state, and says they're going to take half of these houses off the hill because we got to run the freeway through here. And they talked about that for years. And I kept telling my dad, I says, they ain't going to ever do that. Don't worry, Pop. They ain't never going to do it. By God, they did do it. So they had to move, when they took their house. And when they bought their house, my mom and dad, when they left the hill, then we just moved into their house more or less, because it was going to be like 2 or 3 months before they took our house. We knew it was going to be about that long. But then my mom and dad got a good deal on a house out of town, off the hill, call it, out of town. That's if you was off the hill, you were out of town. But anyway, we lived in that house, in the house I was raised in. And then the kids, none of them were old enough to go to school yet then. When I bought my first house, Cheryl was old enough. But then, what I was going to say about my wife, she wasn't Croatian. She couldn't speak Croatian. But she got in the church and got into their clubs and all this stuff. More people knew her than knew me. I'd go back down on the hill. Oh, you're Lila's husband. I'd say, what? I'm Hutch. I'm Hutch. Yeah, but you're Lila's husband. So, oh my God, there's more people down there knew her than knew me after a while. But that was good, I thought, because she blended in just perfect.
Sounds like she really embraced it.
Oh, yeah.
They embraced her.
Yeah. Everybody down there liked her. Jeez.
I like to ask this question
Okay.
To people I interview. What's the takeaway from your life? It seems like you have so many great stories, but if you had to sum it all up and tell me what's the significance of your life, what is it?
Oh, man. I guess having a family, having kids, try to be fair with everybody, and don't discriminate.
That's important.
Because where I worked with a lot of black people, a lot of them. And they were all friends of mine. We got along. Maybe there was 2 or 3 that I didn't get along with, or they didn't get along with me. But the rest of them it was great. The people down there were real good. And every time I come back, I still got one real good friend that still works down there where I work. And In fact, today I'll probably go see him after I talk, after word is through. He doesn't live too far from here. And I don't know. I think that's what life is. I was put here to have those kids.
That's your legacy.
That's what I believe.
How do you want them to remember you?
Just that I was good to them. And like Dave, he says, the reason he got me out there in California, he says, it's payback time. It's time for me to start paying you back. So you're going to stay with me. Don't worry about nothing. And I get along with his family real good. The only thing, what he told me, he says, now, before you move out here, he says, I want you to come out and bring your dog, because he says, I know you ain't going to get rid of that dog. It's a little bitty dog. His name's Bingo. And he says, see if Bingo can get along with Mary, his wife. Because his wife doesn't like dogs, because when she was growing up, she grew up on a farm. A neighbor's dog started chewing on her leg one time, But she said, at least that got me through college. The settlement she got out of the people that owned that dog. But she never did like dogs. Even when his kids were growing up, when Dave's kids were growing up, she didn't like to have a pet. They had one, I think, but she didn't like it. But he says, you got to bring Bingo out here with you and make sure he can get along with Mary. Now, she plays with him more than anybody in the family. Her and her other son. Her and Colby. He waits for him to come home from work. Waits by the door. He knows what time they're going to come. And he'll be sitting right there with his head sticking around a corner watching that front door. And then right about before they get home, he'll walk to the front door and just wait right there. Because he knows they're going to. And if David comes home, a lot of times he gets tied up and he has to, some emergency come up or something, he's got to stay another hour or two. If he comes home an hour late, Bingo will sit by the door waiting for him. Then when he wonder why he's not home yet, he's supposed to be home, he'll get antsy and start walking back and forth,
John, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, I would be curious to know if, since Joe isn't here, what do you think Joe would say? What would he say about what it was like when he coming from the old country to here?
See, he wouldn't. Well, coming from there, he'd probably talk about that. But being there, when he was there, he wouldn't talk about that very much. He'd talk about his grandpa. That's about all.
What did he say?
Just about his grandpa. He said he really loved him. He said they got along great. He said he used to, where that village was at back there in Croatia, it's like up in the mountains almost, but they're not mountains. It's just a high place, And right in back almost in back of where their house was at, where there's a gully like a wash, almost. And because they planted a lot of stuff, you'd go up this hill and you got in. Right when you get up to the top of it, it's like forest almost. And I went up there with my cousin and everything. And Tim went up there with me and my cousin. And my dad's, I think, it'd be my uncle. He went up there with us, taking us up there. And when we got up there and walked a little way, he says, we got to walk through these trees a little bit, and then we'll get out to the spot where they grew their crops and stuff. I said, okay. So we walk about halfway through this forest, and he says, okay, pause him all, stop. And he says, Slushy, listen. So I was just listening, and all you could hear was the birds chirping, up in the trees. And I kind of looked at him and I said, well, all I hear is the birds. He says, that's what I want you to hear. Just the birds, that's all you hear. You don't hear no traffic noise. You don't hear anything but them birds up there. That's all you're supposed to hear in a forest. Then we started walking again. Then he showed me where they planted stuff. Then like the wheat and everything that they planted, they'd bale it up and take it to that gully and roll it down the hill. Instead of carrying it, they just rolled it down. And they had somebody down there stopping it so it wouldn't roll into a house or roll too far. Then they'd go down and use it, and carry the vegetables down and everything.
Well, did Dad ever say anything in detail about your grandfather?
Yeah, yeah. It's just that and Joe was telling me he was a big man, a big guy. I guess that's where some of my kids got their growth, I guess. I don't know. But he said, man, he could be an honor guy when you got him riled. He said, yeah, don't want to rile him up too much,
Dad was telling me a story one time where Louis gave him a plate of food to take up to Grandpa.
Yeah.
Apparently he lived up on a hill.
Yeah.
Did he ever tell you about that?
Yeah, he was taking it up there for lunch, carrying his lunch up there. And he got almost to him and he spilled it. It was milk and zganse, we call it, like cornmeal mixed in with the milk, dumped it all. So Grandpa got down on his hands and knees and licked it up. That's how he ate it. So you can't waste it. Mud and everything, dirt and everything. He just ate it all. Because they didn't have nothing, Then Joe was telling me, did he tell you about that time that he went down to Tersh and he bought a loaf of bread? Or yeah. That was funny. I guess he was going down there, and I don't think he didn't get the bread from Mom. He got it from one of the neighbors, gave him some money to buy a loaf of bread down there for him. Well, on the way back up, he poked a hole in his bread, he started eating it. He got up there and it was gone. He ate the whole damn thing. I guess he got a whipping for that. Oh, man. That was Joe. But he says, I was hungry. But he says, I don't know, I just couldn't stop. So he ate it all. So then the people that gave him money were raising hell. Where's my bread? But a funny thing he told me about, like he said, when you'd walk down to the other building, this Terst, where the school was at and everything.
How do you spell that?
Like T-E-R something, I don't know, just 4 or 5 letters. I can't remember. But like I say, the school was down there and everything. But when they'd go to school, they'd have to walk down there, him and Dorothy. So he said there's 2 or 3 villages, I guess, going down, different villages going down the hill, with like 10, 15 homes and not many people. But everybody spoke a different kind of Croatian. Everybody. Like this first one spoke close to what they spoke. Then the next one was, you couldn't hardly understand it. Then the last one was, you couldn't understand any of it. He couldn't understand any of it. But he said it was just weird. But they all had their different dialects, I guess. So.
Does the name Draskovic mean anything to you?
Oh, yeah. There were some Draskoviches on the hill. Yeah.
Well, I was told that Dad dated a woman named
Millie Draskovic, yeah. I remember her. She's a real cute little gal. Millie. Yeah. I remember her. But Ray used to see her all the time, you know, but she passed away here not too long ago, you know.
Why didn't he ever get together with Millie?
I don't know. You know, it just wasn't meant to be, I guess, you know.
How about Dorothy? Did she ever sit down and tell?
No, she wouldn't talk about it because too many of her friends died over there. She said, no.
What about when, I understand that when Dorothy wanted to marry Al, that Louis had some objections at first?
I don't know. I don't know if he did. But after he met him, they were the best of buddies, man. Yeah. And he liked that wine too. Him and Pop would have a jar of it every night, man. Oh man, especially in the wintertime, I guess.
Can you tell me about the closeness of the houses? Why are the houses so close together?
I guess for the property lines, you know, it just to save the room. We could build more houses on the hill, I guess, you know. It probably went like that. Because the house between ours and the next one up from us, you could put your arms out and touch each house. Just bend a little bit. That's how close they were. And of course, you knew everything they were doing over there, and they probably knew everything we done over here. But some of them where there was some room, like the house down from us, they had an attached garage. And so they had a driveway and then the house, you know, so there was quite a bit of space between there. And there was one pretty big house up the street from us, about 3 doors up, that had more property than anybody else. But that was probably one of the first houses that was built there, you know.
I heard stories about kids would be able to just kind of go in and out of all of the houses. The doors were always unlocked.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I remember when I was real small, we didn't have indoor plumbing. We had an outhouse. Then, one other thing about the hill, there was a gal that lived close to Armour's meatpacking company. She wasn't Croatian, I don't think. Or maybe she was. I never did know. But maybe she was. Anyway, she'd come around the hill. She'd push this. She had a push cart, a big one. And it would hold a couple of drums, almost like 55-gallon drums, those big ones, you know. And she'd go around the hill and collect the slop. Because everybody had a slop bucket out in back, you know. As far away from the house as you could put it, and put a lid on her, and she'd come around and empty them into her barrel, because she raised some pigs down there too. And she had an odor to her, I'm telling you. And my mom felt so sorry for that gal. So in the wintertime especially, she'd make her come in, sit down at the kitchen table, and give her a glass of Pop's wine. And my dad would get furious when he found out she was doing that. And he could tell whenever he got home, you could smell it, you know. She's been here again. Did you let her in the house again? Because her clothes were just rags, I guess, hand-me-down. Like homeless people now, you know how homeless people got older. Every time I see a guy pushing a cart, I think of that gal. And that artist, Mariana, did you ever hear about her? She was from the hill. She was, I think, 2 years younger than me. She's an artist. I mean, she's got stuff worldwide. I mean, this gal is good. She painted a lot of different scenes of Strawberry Hill. And in this one, she painted, when I was small on the hill, the huckster had come around the hill. And I knew this guy, this huckster's brother, his youngest brother. I used to run around with him. But when she'd done this one painting of the hill, she had the huckster in there and people standing around the cart, buying food from him or vegetables and stuff for him. And she showed me that picture when she was almost done with painting it. It was a big painting. So she says, well, I'll look at it. And she says, tell me what you think. So I'm looking at it. I said, man, it looks good. It looks good. Says, it's beautiful. But I says, you forgot something. And she says, I didn't forget anything. What are you talking about? I says, where's this Zgainadaka? That's what we call this scale, Zgainadaka. Oh my God. So she painted her in there. Yeah. So she's in that painting. Because everybody on the hill knew her, But everybody on the hill kind of shunned her because she smelled so bad. Oh, God. But my mom, oh, bless her soul. And all the women on the hill, when I was a kid, they went to Mass every day. Every day, 7 o'clock Mass. We had this dog, we called him Jeep. And he was some dog. He was a little short. He was a mix chow mix. And he was white and he had some black spots on his face. He was just a mutt. But anyway, he was our dog. But that dog, when them gals would get off out of church and come walking down the hill, the gals that lived on our street, they'd always stop in front of somebody's house and gab for a while before they went in the house after Mass. So Jeep, every year he used to take off. Like a pack of dogs, they'd come and get him. It was just breed time or something. I don't know what the heck it was. But them dogs had their ritual. They'd come and get Jeep. It was like almost calling him, from the house. And he'd run over there and take off with these dogs. And he'd be gone for a week or two, maybe. We didn't know where he was at. This one time, it was longer than that. And these gals were coming home from church, and they asked Mom, is Jeep back yet? Is Jeep back yet? Because they all liked him. And she says, no. And they started praying for him, Oh, I hope he's still alive. They're all crying out there. And here he comes straggling up the street, up this alley across from us. And he's all beat up, fur's gone off. Because he always used to come back pretty well beat up. But this time he was really beat up and limping, and my dad would have to doctor him up, get him ready for the next trip, I guess. Because there was no stopping him. When them dogs came, he was gone. You couldn't tie him down or nothing. No way. He'd see you coming with a leash and he'd take off. No way. Oh.
We have some good film footage of Jeep and your mom in the backyard.
Oh, yeah. And your dad when your dad had come to church down there every Sunday at 11 o'clock Mass, then he'd stop at our house. And Mom would be cooking, of course, and he'd be snacking, Janie used to get so mad at him when he'd come home. You were down there eating again, weren't you? Because he wouldn't be very hungry, when he got home. But he'd sit down there and he'd start teasing that damn dog. And he'd growl at him, and that dog would start growling at him and start barking and raising hell. And Mom used to holler at both of them, to be quiet, be quiet. But he teased that dog to death every Sunday. And that dog knew it. He's going to be here, and he's going to tease me. So they'd play with each other, more or less. Oh.
Well, I have two more questions.
Okay.
And the first question is there anything throughout this interview that you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked or just hasn't came up? Something that you want preserved?
Oh, well, one thing really that it's not very old or anything, but this party that you guys planned and everything, and what all the work that Eleanor done on it. It's just beautiful. I got to go talk to her about that too, because I really appreciate that. Gee whiz. But you guys put on a show, I'm telling you. It was great. It was great. And I think everybody there liked it. She loved it. I got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen for a long time. And I got to meet you. And like I got to meet a lot of guys' kids, you know. A lot of the kids. Gee whiz. I didn't know I had that many relatives, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of people there. Gee whiz.
Well, there are more. There are people in Minnesota, people down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Nice if we could rent a stadium sometime and get them all together.
Yeah, one time after that trip we made to Europe that one time, that John Kopp went with us, him and his wife and his brother. I think it was just those three, yeah. And we had a ball over there, especially with John. Oh man, he was a talker, and he talked that, and especially when he talks from Croatia, he'd talk it with a brogue, you know, with that Cajun brogue. I'd laugh at him. Jeez, he was funny. When we were over there, we were on a tour bus going around all around Croatia. So they had a guard on this tour bus. She's up there with a microphone explaining everything. So John's sitting there listening to it, and he gets up and walks toward that gal, and he says, I'm not trying to say you're not doing this right or anything. He says, but he says, you look like you're getting tired because we've been on this bus for a long time. You know, he's telling her all this with that damn Cajun brogue. And nobody knew what the hell he was doing. Then he says, why don't you sit down for a while and give me that microphone? So he done the thing the rest of the tour. And then people loved it, man. They ate that up. Laugh. He'd get you to laugh. Oh, my God. Oh, he was funnier than him. And he had a ball doing that. He had a ball doing it. He was so funny. But I'd met him just one time before that, and that was when I was pretty small still. They came up from Baton Rouge, because that's where they lived at. But when me and Lila had on our 25th wedding anniversary, we didn't know nothing was going on. But anyway, this one relative from the old country, my cousin's wife, he was a professor. This guy was a professor in Zagreb University. He was in agriculture. That was his field. So he came to Iowa State University. He stayed for a year studying agriculture and, you know, studying the way that farmers work in the States, you know. So every once in a while he'd come down to visit, you know, stay with us for a weekend, you know. And the day of that anniversary, we were going to go out for dinner. And he was going to go with us. So we get in the car, and I asked Lila, I said, is your mom going to go with us? And she says, oh, darn it, yeah, but she's out at Wyandotte County Lake at some kind of meeting for whatever, you know. So I said, well, we'll go out there and pick her up. And she says, yeah, that's where she's at. We got to go out there. I forgot to tell you. So we get out there, and they told me, this is, why don't you go in there and get her, because we're all crammed in this car together. You know? So I walk in there, and I got to looking around. I'm looking for Grandma, and I'm looking around. Where the hell's she at? And she was in this other room. Like, I heard her calling, you know, come on in here, come on in. I go in there, and it's full of people. It's people I knew, you know. I said, what are you guys doing out here, you know, with the Grandma? He says, well, go get Lila and bring her in. And I think Cheryl was with us too, and get Cheryl and bring her in. David was there. He was supposed to have been away at college. And Tim was there, and all these people that I knew. And they says, go get Lila. She says, this is for your guys' anniversary. And John was there, and his wife, and his brother, the ones that went to Yugoslavia with us. Man, I about passed out. I didn't see them until we came back in. And when we walked in, of course, everybody started hollering at Lila and everything. Happy anniversary and all this stuff. Then I seen John. It's like, oh man, that was great. Just great. We had a blast that night. Oh man. It was like the reunion almost. All of the kids were out there and everything. The whole schmear. But that was pretty neat. But it shocked me. I couldn't believe it. Oh man. And then Boris told me, that was the guy from Croatia. He says, I was dying to tell you what was going on, but it'd have blown it all, so no. And so I asked him, I said, that's why you're down here this week, huh? Because he'd just been down here the week before, I think. So it was too close together, more or less. I should have figured something was going on. Dumb me. But it was nice. But other than that, you got any more questions?
I wanted to know what the reunion meant to you, so I'll wing another question. What does the American dream mean to you as the descendants of an immigrant?
It's great that this is what gets me about this president we got now. I don't know if you voted for him or anything, but this guy's against immigration. How does he think most of the people got here? They immigrated here. Only thing that was here was Indians at first. You don't see very many of them. All these other people you're seeing, they're immigrants. And you're against immigration? What are you, crazy or what? This guy's got to be sick in his head. And some of the stuff he pulls. That's what ticks me off about the states now. The president we got. But everything else it's going to take years and years and years to straighten it all back out, I think. And I think the Republican Party's done. I think they're done. I mean, he put the hurts on them, especially when the Congress are more or less backing him now. The Republican Party's gone. I used to vote Republican every once in a while. I'd never do it again. No way, for nobody. Especially when I seen that one gal that said I'd rather be Russian than a Republican or than a Democrat. Did you see that on TV? Yeah. She's wearing this damn T-shirt. I'd rather be Russian than Democrat.
That's scary.
I felt like if I could call her and talk to her, I'd tell her, then why in the hell don't you go back to Russia? Go to Russia. And I know she wasn't Russian. She says, if that's the way to feel, get the hell on out of here. I love this country. Oh, man. But anyway, anything else?
One more, because I hate to end with him as kind of like the grand finale.
Yeah.
We all feel the same way, though.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%.
Good.
And you may have already answered this, but maybe you have a different way of phrasing this. When history is written, what do you want it to say about you?
About what?
About you. Yeah.
About me?
Yeah.
I've said it all already. I thought I explained everything.
You did really
How
well.
ornery I was as a kid, how I grew up, where I worked, and my marriage was great, and kids are great. I've got no complaints, really. I got a lot of regrets, but no complaints, Because I regret some of the stuff that I done when I was growing up, because I had to be a handful to my mom and dad. And I know I was for my mother, because when I was a teenager, she knew that I was supposed to be home when I was, especially when I was working, school, during school time, you know. She knew I had to get up early in the morning, go to school. But dumb me, I didn't know. I wanted to go mess around with my friends after I worked. You know, that. What my friends used to do, about 4 or 5 of the special friends, they used to always come to help me close up the station at night. Because I had to clean the place up, you know, wash it all down. And they'd help me do that. And then we'd go mess around. But what would happen 90% of the time, we'd get in a grease fight, you know, because they had grease guns in there. You'd pull one down and squirt somebody. Then we'd start we'd do that for at least a half hour. Then we'd have to clean the place up again. Gee, and we'd all swear we ain't gonna do that no more because we gotta clean the place twice. But somebody squirts you. Oh, here we go. And they had them oil cans, you know, you pump them and squirt oil on them. Oh my God. That's how crazy we were. Then when I'd get home real late, I'd try to sneak in the house. And I could count on it. If I look in the front room, my mom would be sitting there praying her rosary, praying that I'd get home probably, you know, because the other 2 boys were in service and stuff, you know. Oh.
That seems like just such a great note to end on, and I want to thank you for inviting me into your world and just sharing part of your life with me. That's a rare privilege.
Oh, yeah. But I hope you had fun. I hope you had a good time.